Welcome everyone to Deep Drinks Podcast. Today my guest was a worship pastor for 25 years. They're now the author of a book called If I'm Really Honest, The Transparent Thought Life of a Reluctant Deconstructionist. My guest today is Jamin Collar. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm super excited to chat to you because you sent me your book. I've had a chance to flick through it and I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing, but I love the parts that I have read so far.
Yeah, no one will have a chance to read the whole thing. It's ridiculous.
It's like 400 and something pages, right? Like,
it's 400 and something pages. Yeah.
So I get like books sent to me every now and again from like people who wanted to like share their story, and they're always like a pamphlet. They're like, like 50 pages or 100 pages.
Sure.
Yours is like decent. Like it's really well thought out.
that's an interesting word for it. Okay, yeah, it's decent. It's very decent.
Like it's decent and like it's like thick. You know what I mean?
Well, frankly, it's like three. I mean, we could talk about it later. It's kind of 3 books in one. So and each of them are broken down in a lot of little sections. So it's kind of like 200 or 300 pamphlets, frankly.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get that later.
So I'm going to like flip this whole deconstruction style interview on its head. I'm going to ask you first, how do you define yourself now?
Mm-hmm.
So this is usually the end of the conversation,
right?
Conclusion, and then I want to go right back and then kind of like we can tell the story up into that moment. So I guess like, how do you define yourself now? Are you a Christian, a skeptic, a believer, a reluctant believer, a reluctant atheist, like a heathen, like? How do you define yourself?
Yeah, I like all that. We'll go with all that. I don't know. I mean, this is, I think, one of the more freeing aspects of leaving a group like what I'm calling fundamentalist evangelicals, and I don't mean that term insultingly, as some people do, but it's a very it's a very strict group with very strict rules because that's what the Bible says it's supposed to be. And so when you leave a group like that is your identity, and explicitly so. Like we say, this is my identity. We say God is my identity, Jesus is my identity, Christianity. Like that's what you are. First and foremost, you're a representative of Christ, and then after that, you're whoever you are. But Jamin ranks way down on the list of things that I am. I'm a follower of Christ. I'm a lot of things before. I'm a godly man. I'm all these things, and then way down at the bottom is like Jamin. So we're all supposed to look exactly like Christ, and then with slight variations because we all have different personalities or whatever. But the personalities, sitting at the bottom. So then when you don't have that anymore of like, here is my identity, when they all say, hey, you're not part of our group anymore, and you're like, well, I think I am, and they're like, no, you're definitely not, then you've got to I've got to decide, okay, well then what am I? And as it turns out, that thing that was sitting at the bottom is pretty cool, actually. And so that's what I am. And so, yes, it depends on who, as I say in the book, like it depends on who I'm talking to as to the way I would describe myself, because I understand that all the terms have different baggage for different people. If I call myself an atheist to a Christian, I've just limited my opportunities to talk more with them. And so I wouldn't call myself an atheist. And I frankly don't think of myself as an atheist. If you woke me up at 3 a.m. and said, are you a Christian? I'd be like, yeah, I'm a Christian. That's what I feel like I am. So I feel like I can be honest and say I'm a Christian. However, I mean, really honestly, I don't believe a lot of the stuff that the people who call themselves Christians believe. And so from their perspective, I'm definitely an atheist, and they're not wrong. I don't believe like them. And so in their categorization, I'm an atheist. So I'm comfortable with all those labels. I don't really care. Like the term Christian was not a term when Jesus walked the earth, if indeed he walked the earth. And so like, and there's nowhere in the Bible that says that I have to be a Christian. So I don't think that, I think it was Mark Twain that said something like, if Jesus Christ was alive today, there's one thing he wouldn't be, and that's a Christian. So, like, I kind of agree with that. Like, I feel not in danger of hell by not being a Christian, not calling myself a Christian. So I don't know what I am. I'm Jamin, and for the first time ever.
Wow, that's profound. Actually, it's funny that you say that. The way you answered that is very similar to, I remember one time I answered a question like that similar. I went to it was my brother-in-law's engagement party, and it was all my old friends from church, and all the, I used to be a youth pastor, so it's like a lot of the youth and stuff are there, and I'm like drinking and like, like I'm not like, like I'm not, I hadn't been going to church for years, and this I was sitting around with a couple of the youth who knew me, who were like my, they were my leaders.
Yeah.
And then this new little like kid who's like just running around asking people if they're Christian. And he's like, "Are you Christian?" Yeah. And then I was like, and then if they said no, he'd be like, "Why not?" And then like he would, and anyway, so he asked me, and I was like stuck because I didn't know what I was at the time. I definitely didn't think I was a Christian. If you were to ask me, like put me in a vacuum and there was no baggage to any terms or anything, I probably would have been an atheist. But at the same time, I knew that if I call myself an atheist, that what that means to them is that I hate them and I hate Christianity, and like, I think that I believe there is no God, and like I'm very strict. When that wasn't the case at all. So I actually answered it. It was very similar to how you just answered it, which is why I was kind of like chuckling, which is essentially, I thought that I was like, well, I said, well, when I read the Bible, I read of, a Christian is someone who takes up the cross every day, who preaches the gospel in all the land, who is selfless, who blah, blah, blah. And I mentioned all these virtues that I knew that they didn't fit either. And I said, so to me, that is a Christian, and I don't fit that definition. So I gave this like little tap dancey, like that was tap dancey. What you said wasn't necessarily tap dancey, but I gave this like answer that I think precluded me from needing to just, I guess, wrestle with the uncomfortable conversations that would have pursued.
Yeah, I like that, because I think that's the same answer that Jesus gave when people said to him essentially the same question. They didn't use the term Christian, but they're like, how do I be a Christian? And he never gave an answer. He's always like, how about you go sell all of your stuff? That's a Christian thing to do. Take everything you have and sell it all, and then you'll be a Christian. People are like, are you joking? Like, that's not the real answer, right? But I think the point is, regardless of the historicity of the events described there, I think the point is, like, if you think that you're looking down on someone else because they're not following the right formula for Christianity, then that's, I mean, the church would call you a Pharisee. Jesus would call you a Pharisee. The church would call you a Christian. But,
it's funny too, that because the Pharisees get like such a bad rap, in Christianity, when in reality they were like the common. They were like the ones who were like, we're the common man. We're like trying to take it back from this, not take it back, but
in a lot of ways,
everyone loved the Pharisees.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to get into Jewish history too much, but there were four main sects, I think, of Jews, and they were the ones that are like, how about we just try to understand God, and we don't worry about all the political stuff, and we just try to follow the spirit of the law, like I think the church would say that they do right now. But yeah, in Christian circles, Pharisee is now of course a curse word. So yeah, history is weird, man.
Well, I didn't even introduce what we're drinking. What are we drinking today? What have you got?
I can't drink, man. So I've got a Moscow Mule, which I made myself, because then I can put as little alcohol in it as possible, because I just got crazy headaches. My body hates alcohol. So, but I do love ginger beer. So I've got this sissy drink.
You don't have to drink. You don't have to drink alcohol. Like it's
all
really
the cool
funny.
Kids are doing it.
Yeah, it's so funny because like big atheist content creators have come on here and they just drink like water or like iced tea, and then the Bible scholars will come on, or even Christian apologists and drink hard liquor. So I'm like, what is this weird dichotomy that I've created here?
Yeah, right. Well, and of course, Jesus' first miracle, that's everybody's favorite thing to point at. Like, took a bunch of already half drunk people and gave them more.
Exactly.
Whatever.
Exactly.
I don't know. Moscow Mule or anything that doesn't taste like alcohol, that's my favorite alcohol. So I do these girly peach margarita things and stuff like that. But then I also love orange and spice tea. Any of my readers from almostoccult.com will recognize that tea is being important in my upbringing. So those are my two main drinks, but I usually have a couple drinks going at the time.
Is that tea common over there in the US?
Very, very. Yeah. Bigelow is like anywhere tea is sold, you're going to run into that.
Yeah. So I think it was like a $50, like I had to buy it in bulk and order it in like via like airmail or pigeon or whatever. Like it was like someone on a horse would come riding in the night and like deliver it. Like
so you did not order that, I hope.
No, I didn't. So I just got the Moscow Mule. But okay, so at the start of the stream, just before we jump right into it, at the start of the stream, Vito Media asked how much dollars super chats to change your name to Davey Dave, and then said $10 name change to Davey Dave. All right, well, I'll do that. So thank you for the super chat. I'll change the name to whatever you like, or within reason.
Wow, I'll have to put some thought into that. That might be worth it.
So as I do that, how what was your upbringing like? Were you a Christian from birth? Like, were you brought up a Christian? Did you have a born again experience? Like, how did you come to know Jesus?
Yeah. So you had it right. I was a Christian from birth. My dad was a pastor before I was born, and we were what I would call fundamentalist evangelicals. And so yeah, I think they told me that I accepted Jesus when I was 5, but it had to have been before then, and it was multiple times after that, as every good Christian recommits their life to Christ multiple times, whenever you feel guilty enough. So. Yeah, I don't know. I got a few dozen recommitments, and I think 5 years old is my official heaven-born birth date or something.
Yeah. So, do you remember what type of relationship, or I guess what type of church were you part of? Was it like a fundamentalist? Did you believe in like young Earth creationism, Noah's magical zoo boat, and all the rest, or did you like what kind of?
I preached on young Earth. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Very, very. Pretty much anything that you would think of. Recently, like really recently in the United States, it seems like fundamentalist evangelicalism has had this weird political, man, I don't even want to say tint to it, but there's a certain branch of it that's gotten extremely political. We were always pretty steadfastly Republican, because obviously no good Christian could be a Democrat. But we didn't spend a lot of time on politics. It was just kind of implied. So other than that, though, all the things you would think about in fundamentalist evangelicalism, the kids camps, like I preached at kids camps for a decade or something across the nation. And yeah, we did all that. We spoke in tongues. Yep. I don't even know what the list is, but if you're thinking it, we did it.
Wow. Okay. It's funny that you say make the joke about, or I don't even know if it's a joke, but Christians are definitely, you'd be a Republican, because when I was this is just, it shows you the difference in, I guess, American thought or Christianity, and so when I was a Christian, I remember watching, I think it was a Michael Moore documentary, and it was like him going around and trying to raise money for the Democrats for doing something, I don't know. And a bunch of people stood up at one of his conferences and started just quoting the Lord's Prayer or something. And he was saying, oh, the Christians are here. And I'm like, I was so confused, because I was like, wait a minute. I was like, no, the Christians are the Democrats, right? Like the people supporting like George Bush, like obviously they're the atheists. Like I was so surprised. I was like, wait, you're telling me the people who like guns are the Christians? I was like, but what happened to turn the other cheek? What happened to like those who live by the sword, die by the sword? Like I was so confused. I was genuinely confused. And
you're reading it wrong, Davey Dave. It's not what the Bible means by that. Yeah. So, and that's actually one of the stories in the book is like, I grew up super duper Republican, and then I started, like, as a musician, I really like gospel music. I still do, even though I have a hard time with a lot of lyrics these days. But just the groove is intoxicating. Yeah. Anyway, so I really like gospel music, so I started playing more like inner city church gigs, and so I would go in there, and it was the same exact political message with the exact opposite recommendation for how to vote. Like no good Christian obviously isn't going to vote for a Republican. And I was like, okay. And I'm like the only white dude in the church building. And so like, I can't like, it's awkward that I'm not amening as loud as everybody else, but also like, I want to be a good Christian. And that was one of the points of like, okay, there's some stuff in here that's weird. If these two pastors can live so close to each other and be so confident that God clearly says in his word that you're supposed to vote two entirely opposite ways, I can't trust them to know which one of them is right. And so that was kind of like some of the first permission to like You're gonna have to figure this out on your own, because the people who are supposed to do the knowing for you, they don't know, and worse than that, they don't know that they don't know, and so it's just on you.
Yeah, and that message is throughout your whole book. Is like you uncovering these kind of these problems. So in your book, and I'm just trying to pull it up now, you actually mention, so you have these I guess parts, and something that I really appreciate about your book, by the way, is you mention that you give warnings to the reader, hey, this is what I think, this is my ideas, trigger warnings to deconstructionists, to evangelicals, to everyone. A letter to your evangelical parents, I think is it? Our friends, evangelical friends. And but then you break down the your journey, I guess, into different parts. So you've got part 1, the questioner; part 2, the church; part 3, the spirit realm; part 4, the Bible; part 5, the Son of God; part 6, the aftershock; and part 7, living honestly. And even just the word living honestly, made I concur. That's how I definitely feel in my journey. It's been a process of just following the evidence where it leads, following the truth where it leads. So I guess
if I could jump in there here real quick,
jump in.
Just to redefine some terms there, because I think we're on the same page. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not led to any conclusions necessarily at this point. So following the truth wherever it leads, that used to mean coming to whatever conclusions the truth points you to. But I think I'm done, at least temporarily, with holding fast to conclusions and never looking back at the evidence again. And so following the truth down the journey of searching for truth that perhaps doesn't have an end. I agree with that, but following the truth wherever it leads, coming to whatever conclusions are match the facts. I think I'm kind of done with that. That was a large part of the problem. Is okay, we settled this. Now we're done with that. We don't have to think about that again. And if anyone says the opposite of that, then we know for sure that they're wrong. So anyway, I agree with you about following the truth, but
you're saying that it's kind of, the truth is tentative, and you can always go back and reevaluate the very foundations of which you grow that truth beacon from. Is that what you're saying?
Almost. Yes, I think I would agree with 100% of the spirit of that. Again, a couple of the vocabulary words that I already lost. I wouldn't say that there is no truth, or that the truth definitely exists. But our ability to find it and fully understand it is so limited that it might as well not exist. So it definitely exists. The truth is out there. But I'm not entirely sure that we can find it. And I'm very sure of some things that aren't the truth. And so that's more where where my book lies. It's not here's what I believe now because now I know the truth, but here's what I can't believe anymore. And that's where all the analogies of the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus and that stuff come in. I don't mean that as an insult. I'm hoping actually to bridge the gap for evangelicals. This isn't a kid who wakes up in the middle of the night and sees his mom exchanging the tooth under the pillow for $1. They don't want to rebel against the Tooth Fairy. They just can't unsee that. And so what are you supposed to do with that information? It's just really unsettling. And now you know something that you can't unknow. And that's the feeling to me of what a lot of people call deconstruction. I don't know if I like that term or not, but it's just I can't go back to not knowing this stuff. And that's where all of those trigger warnings come from. Is I used to play around with the truth because I thought that we were secure in what we knew. No matter what happens, you're never going to find out that. And then scary stuff after that, that Jesus wasn't God, that the Trinity isn't real, that whatever the things are, no matter what you find in the world, those things are going to remain the same. And so that I started throwing these questions out okay, but what about this? This seems weird. Tell me how this leads back to the truth of the church, or this seems weird. How does that lead back to the church? And then you throw it out there, and the answers that you get don't lead you back to where you wanted to go. And now you're just out there lost in space. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
No, it does make sense. John D just said, "Well, I love what he said about the truth. Someone who has actually deconstructed the appeal of dogmatism."
Yeah. Well, and that's dogmatism. I like that. I like that word because it's that is across all theological viewpoints, and like there's
well, not just
it,
like political, ideological, like there's like
our species
in group and out
craves
group.
it. Yeah,
Mm.
we want to settle the truth so we don't have to worry about it anymore. We want that to be done so we can just go on having known the truth. And I don't know that that's an option for a lot of things. So that's a good word. Thanks, John.
So your book is available now for anyone who wants to purchase. If I'm really honest, the Transparent Thought Life of a Reluctant Deconstructionist. It was called Dear Evangelicals,
Yes.
but you recently changed the name to make it more, I guess, evangelical friendly. Is that the idea?
No, so this is not evangelical friendly. If you are an evangelical and you want to stay an evangelical, do not read my book. And I don't say that lightly. There are I again back in my more back when I believed more in this stuff, I was asking beta readers to read this book, and it was called Dear Evangelicals, because like, hey, help me out with this stuff. Like, what's up with this stuff? And a lot of those beta readers came back and were like, I don't think I'm a Christian anymore. I'm like, oh crap! Like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to wreck everything that you've built your life on. So yeah, so then I realized, like, we've got some separate books. I've got some messages for evangelicals about loving more fully and being more open. But this is not the book for evangelicals who want to stay evangelical. And for anyone who thinks they're brave enough, like, I know this stuff is true, there's nothing you could do to say that would convince me that I'm wrong, then that's cool. Like, come along and show me where I'm wrong, because if I'm wrong, there's nothing I need to know more desperately than why I'm wrong. So jump on if you dare. But also, I can't be responsible for the things you won't be able to unknow after reading them. So
yeah, I'm similar in that I try and ask permission if I'm ever going to talk to someone and challenge their beliefs. I ask permission if it's okay that I can do that. And this isn't relevant, but I actually was just about to ask you permission if we could do a bit of a deep dive into what you just said before, in regards to having, I guess, answers. Because is it okay if we talk a little bit about, I guess, epistemology, like how we arrive at beliefs?
Sure. Yeah.
Things like that.
Let's do it.
Awesome. So I've just lost what you said before, but you said, tell me if I'm correct. You said something along the lines of it's in oh my gosh, my brain is just like,
I don't remember what I said either. So you're good.
So sorry. So, oh geez, what was I going to say? Sorry, guys.
But how we find the truth.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, okay, so I've got sorry, oh my gosh, that happens, and then I get nervous, and then it makes it worse.
No,
when I was deconstructing in my faith, I looked at like all these big questions. So I looked at like Noah, and like, did Noah's like ark happen with the whole earth flooded? And then, I'm like, well, there are ways to like make it work, like it was a local flood, but then that kind of defeats the purpose of like a big flood, or like learning about evolution and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So I learned about these things, and they deconstructed parts of my faith. So I started realizing that the Bible wasn't inerrant. I started realizing that the church can be manipulative and run by people who don't actually know essentially what they're doing. They're just following, I guess, the previous generations, like iterations of a ideology and belief. I started noticing the harm of Christianity. I started, there's good stuff as well, but there's a lot of harm as well. So I started noticing all these things, and I came to the conclusion that I needed to, like, I guess, wipe the slate clean, and then determine what parts I could believe in, like could say were true. And it's interesting because what you kind of said at the start was, it sounds like you're kind of in the space of depending on what time of day or who's asking you could be an atheist, you could be a Christian, and you just kind of it sounds like you're kind of living in this space of in this like dichotomy, in this like I wouldn't say cognitive dissonance, but like in this space of holding two different perspectives.
Yes.
And so I guess my question is, if you were to go, like, have you gone and tried to wipe the slate clean and see what you can build up from that clean slate? And if you were to do that, or if you have done that, like what have you found actually sticks?
Yeah. Okay. So several things in there. Crud, I'm losing them one by one. So about wiping the slate clean,
That's the alcohol.
Get there. About the different labels for me too. I just want to clarify that that's not because I don't know what I think about things, but I think that the terminology around belief is so loaded that there's no label that a person can have in theology that doesn't communicate a lot to their audience. So if I say that I'm a Christian to an atheist, I'm already banned from the discussion for some good reasons, but also some invalid reasons, because I'm on the atheist side. And the same thing in the other world, like you were saying too. Like, you can't call yourself an atheist in a Christian circle, or else you don't have any more conversation. So it's not a matter of like, well, I don't know what I am, so I guess I'm kind of a Christian, I'm kind of an atheist. Like, I think I've got a good handle on what I think currently, but I don't trust other people to handle the labels appropriately. So I'm going to change my label depending on my audience, because I don't want to give them the wrong impression about what I think.
So it's more that you have a private like worldview that is pretty like solid and ground and built up, but you don't necessarily like to communicate that.
Yeah, I don't even know that I call it private. If you want to read 450 pages, you can know what my worldview is. I'm fine being public about it, but it's more nuanced than the Christian views of atheists or the atheist view of Christians. So I'm not comfortable settling for either one of those labels. But I do agree about the cognitive dissonance thing, and in fact, I'm probably distrusting of anyone who is not aware of the cognitive dissonance that they're living in, because we all are. And so anyone who's just not aware of it is probably less safe than the people who do know it, as my current hypothesis. So I feel more at home with people who are like, yeah, we all live differently than we say that we believe, and maybe that's the right one. So those are the kind of people okay, cool. As long as we both know that we don't know very much, and that includes ourselves, then I feel safe to continue conversation. But anyway, the wiping the slate clean thing, if we're good to go back to that. So do you know the Chesterton's fence analogy thing?
Nope.
Okay, cool. So then I don't either, but I'm going to give you my version of it. So it goes something like, if you come across a fence in the middle of nowhere, the liberal view is, hey, this fence doesn't serve any purpose, let's tear it down. And the conservative view is, before we tear it down, let's figure out what it is here for, because there might be unintended consequences of tearing this thing down. Maybe this serves a good purpose. And so what do you do with the fence? And that's kind of like defines the liberal and conservative view of those things. So as far as wiping the slate clean, I feel like our species has reinvented this character so many times, and it's so similar each time, that I feel like it would be take a great deal of hubris for me to go, oh, all of my species has apparently felt like they needed this thing, but I don't. I'm smarter than that. And so I'm going to get rid of God, because obviously God doesn't exist. I don't think.
So the thing that you're talking about is God, like that people create
in
gods.
This, yeah. I'm sorry. Right. I'm sorry. I didn't say that. Yes. Yes. I mean, the number of God narratives that we have that are almost exactly the same thing. It seems like our species has at least utilized this, maybe definitely for evil purposes. Maybe that was the intent behind it. I don't know. But I'm at this fence, and I'm at this thing, this God thing, that my species has spent a lot of energy and resources hanging on to. And there's no species that hangs on to something that is that costly unless it does some real good for them. maybe, I don't know. That's my current hypothesis. But so I'm not comfortable wiping the slate clean. Like, all right, let's start. Jamin's going to figure out the universe, and then that's going to go all right. That's probably not going to go all right. So I have a deep reverence for our the heritage of this species. The heritage doesn't seem like a long enough word. The inheritance I've gotten of divine, sacred, holy, these words that I feel like do a better job of describing the experience of being a human than the terms that describe what I think is actually going on. So, for example, let's take one of them. We all get together and we all sing together. We cause our vocal cords to create frequencies that match the other frequencies that we hear. And for some reason, for almost all humans, that experience is deeply moving. That's weird. What the hell is going on there? That shouldn't be. And religions have taken this and turned it into, worship songs or chants or whatever it is. And because they've realized there's some great power here that's happening that we don't really understand what it is. And so the atheist goes, well, yeah, I mean, because you're communal species and whatever. And they've got like a definition of like, well, here's all the reasons that we would have done this and why it feels important, even though it's not really important. And I just feel like to call that experience holy, to sing with someone, to be that vulnerable, to be in that intimate experience with another human, divine or holy or sacred, describes my experience a lot better than anything else. And those are all religious terms. So I feel like I'm kind of stuck now because the religions describe my human experience, but the scientists describe the scientists better predict the future than the religions. And so, yeah, there's just a huge difference.
That's interesting because I think I agree for the most part that, like, this is how I view it. So I look at, so if I was to look at that problem, like look at the like I guess not, we won't say heritage, but whatever the word is that's bigger than heritage of the history of humanity, like having these God concepts.
Yep.
I look at that and go, okay, the evidence, well, not the evidence, but what we have is we have, I guess, humanity creating these God concepts that are good and bad for society. Like they're great at organizing society. They're great at giving people purpose, meaning in their lives. So I know there's a utility to it there.
Okay.
I look at this and go, okay, so what does this tell us? Like, so it tells us, go. Sorry.
Well, just whatever list we come up with, you and I together, of the utilities of religion, I don't feel confident that there's a whole lot longer lists that you and I aren't even aware of or thinking of or could come up with. Okay, cool.
Yeah, of course. Like, I'm not saying, so I'm not saying like that this is an exhaustive case, but this is where I'm trying to build the case in my mind of what you're kind of saying. And what I imagine what you're kind of saying, how I would develop this, I guess, thought. So I look at this and go, okay, so there's this important thing, and we're looking at this important thing, which is God and religion. And it's been important, but like, how does, just because it's been around for so long and it's something that humans do, does that add any validity to, I guess, the underlying idea behind those things? So
not at all.
I would then test it and I go, okay, well, humanity likes to eat together, humanity likes to sing songs together, humanity likes to, like, there's all these things that humanity does, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's something, I guess, behind it. Like if there was this like idea that humanity sung together because we've all got little aliens inside of us that you like to sing, and then it's like, well, that's evidence of these little aliens that like to sing inside of everyone. I would go, well, I don't know if that's the case. So I think that, so then I look at this and go, okay, so what can this tell us that humanity has decided to like creating stories, likes to worship like idols and gods and create rituals and stuff. I look at that as just part of the human condition and go, that's I guess all we can really say about that. So then, to me, that then doesn't add any credence to the idea that there's any validity behind these gods in a I don't know if even if this is the right word, but metaphysical, like tangible, real world way. It's maybe it's like this. I guess the same way I would imagine Jordan Peterson as a Christian. It's like, you know, it's like okay, he likes it, like, and he likes the ideals and he likes like the concepts, but he doesn't. I don't think he actually believes that like Jesus rose from the dead, or you know, I don't know. It's so I guess that's where it leads me, is I go, okay, I can see these things are important, but I just don't know if they point to truth. And that was the same. So that was one kind of example that you brought up, but and you've also mentioned, sorry, that you've got these like these words that you associate with those experiences, so like holy or or you know, and but aren't they just a construct of, I guess, your understanding of those words through your subjective experience of being a human? So like if you grew up and you familiarize yourself with the word bling blong, and that was the word you used for that experience, you would go, well, bling blong is the word that I use. Like, isn't that it just seems to me rather subjective, and that's fine. Like,
right, but well, I think I think I totally agree with you here. The fact that there's a feeling that goes with this thing, and there's a description of it that feels better than the actual description of it. None of that means that any of the facts of any religion is right. All it means is I like the feeling of these words over here better than the feelings of these words over here. But I personally think that matters. So my analogy that I feel is probably lacking, but I haven't found a better one yet, is love. Like, so like love isn't real. Like it's true love, you know, the thing, like the Christian thing of like, well, God created one person for you to be with, and you know, if you follow his will, then you're going to be, you know, just follow Jesus, and he'll bring you to the right person at the right time, the person he prepared for before the earth was formed. All those, you know, the things that we tell the teenagers to make sure they don't have sex with each other. So you know, so all that stuff, so that's not real. And like the level below that of like the Cinderella thing of like, well, if you find the right person, there's not one person God picked out for you, but if you find the right person, you'll live happily ever after. Like, well, that's not gonna happen either. And so then when you ask yourself, well, what do we actually know about love? The answer is like, well, like not much. It's entirely possible that it's just these chemicals that are floating around. There's hormones, there's oxytocin, there's, you know, all this other stuff, and that love isn't real. Like, it's just all mating chemicals, and that's where it came from. I've got 6 kids. I love them. Like, and you can't you can't convince me that I don't, and I don't believe in love, but I definitely love them.
I get what you're saying. Is art real? You know what I mean? Is art real?
Yeah. Okay.
Like, art isn't real, but art is real.
Right.
That's gonna be clip. That sounds so dumb, but you know what I mean? Like,
well, that's the problem. It all sounds dumb here. Like, I believe I live as though I believe in love, even though, and this back to the whole thing of like the contradiction in your head. It's like, I don't believe in love, but I live as though love is real because it is a better heuristic for me than the facts that I have of this experience. And so if I live as though love is real, my life goes better than if I like commit hard to no, but love isn't real, and I live that way. My life is going to suck. And so I live as though it's real. And I feel like there's something like that in religion. It doesn't have to be Jesus or Buddha, or like, it doesn't have to be Muhammad. It doesn't have to be any of those, but but what?
No, I well, unless you have something to finish on that, but I agree with you. I think there is something to religion. In fact, I was talking to Stacy the other week, and apostasy, and you know, she misses worship music. There's something about I mean, a lot of ex-Christians hate worship music, but there's something about like coming together, and singing these songs all in unison, directed at a single cause. It's the same with I get very emotional or very filled with awe and excitement when I look up at the night sky when I have my glasses on, because I've gotten bad in my old age. But
there's a moon up there. You can see the moon.
Yeah, there's a moon. Yeah, but like when I look at the massiveness of the universe, or even like. I was young earth creationist, and when I started learning about evolution, I felt like a real, I would say, spiritual feeling.
Yes.
Kind of realizing that we were all, this life is so precious and so brutal and so scary, and like, and it's something that like helped me, I guess, get over the death of a loved one. Wasn't thinking about that they were in heaven anymore or anything like that. It was learning that elephants mourn the death of their dead in their group. They'll travel for miles and miles and miles, and then come back the next year and stand around the place where the old elephant has died. And it's like not even elephants can escape this like feeling of loss and pain, and that made me feel so at one with I guess everything. I felt so it felt spiritual.
Yes.
But if you ask me, like, if you ask me what that means from like an objective standpoint, it's like trying to explain art or trying to like mathematically work out music. I mean, there probably is a way to mathematically work out music, but you know what I mean? Like it's different parts of the brain.
Yeah. Well, and as a musician, like this is one of my favorite things is like the definition of what's happening. Like I could tell you how many vibrations per second. I can tell you how many overtones I can tell you why a violin sounds like a violin and why a piano sounds like a piano, and I could analyze the song. But in the end, like, it doesn't really matter. Like, does the song grip you or not? And none of that definition really matters. So I guess that's where we can connect on the art thing. It's like there's only spiritual terms to describe the experience, and none of your like numbers of hertz or beats per minute or any of these calculations really matter, even though a song isn't a real thing outside of the scientific definitions of them, but the experience is way different than the definition. So we have to live as. Go ahead.
No, go finish what you're saying.
I think we have to live with that, trying to balance those two of like, it's okay. It's back to that dogmatism that John talked about at the beginning. Like, if you're gonna hold on to love isn't real, and you're just that's gonna be your thing, and you're not gonna let this in, that's gonna suck. If you're gonna hold on to, but art isn't real, it's all frequencies, and you're all crazy that you're interpreting in music, like, you're gonna miss out on art. And I think that perhaps for a large percentage of of my species, there's something there for divinity too, and science, or whatever you want to put in opposition to it.
Yeah, I think I can get on board, I guess, for the most part of what you're saying. I really can, because I think that there's, well, I would just describe it as like the subjective or objective, like, things that we can measure. And even objective things that we can measure are based on our understanding of other things that we think are objective. And sometimes they change, but for the most part, we like can make determinations of what's true and what's not true.
Sure. I mean, it's a game we play. We try to, but I think that we've always been really impressed with how much we know now, and we've always been really shocked at how stupid the people just before us were. And now we're smart. Now we got it figured out. I think we know nothing. I think we know that's almost true. We know almost nothing. We're close to 0%. We're so much closer to 0% than we are to 1% of what there is that's knowable. It's a fun game to play. I mean, go find stuff out. I'm not saying it's a worthless pursuit. It might be the only worthwhile pursuit. But also, like, us thinking that, oh, well, now we know. Now we know the list of things that God was doing for us, that this religion stuff was doing. So now we can get rid of it safely. I'm back at Chesterton's fence going, are you sure that's the complete list? Are you sure this fence isn't doing something else here? I mean, if it's causing us harm, I don't think that we should hang on to the parts that are obviously dangerous, but getting rid of it seems It just that would worry me. And I'm not a Christian. I'm not religious. I don't go to church. So I'm not advocating for anyone to jump into religion. I just think that for someone to say we don't need God, we don't need religion, I'm with Nietzsche on that one. Like that's a dangerous proposition. You better be damn sure that you know what you're doing, and I don't think you do.
Okay, I might disagree with you there, but I don't want to go down that path. I want to actually I want to actually talk a little bit about the harmful things that you did, I guess, discover in your journey.
Yep.
Because we're already 45 minutes in. This has been really interesting so far. So, I guess give us the list of things that you discovered in your process of your reluctant deconstruction that you were like, oh, this isn't good. I don't think this works anymore. What did you find?
I mean, more than I'm going to be able to remember. There's like literally, like when I said it's like 200 pamphlets in the book, it's like you've taken a look at the book. It's like a page or two for each thing. And then like, well, here's the thing on Nicodemus, and here's the thing on prayer, and here's the thing on like, and it's just like, if you got an answer for this, cool. But I think that this is why I can't believe in this thing anymore. But some of the big ones, I mean, Inherency of Scripture, shoot. I mean, honestly, the way that I've structured the book, I'm going to just assume no evangelicals have made it to this point in the interview. So I'm going to go ahead and like reveal a little bit. The way the book is structured, it lets people pull the ripcord on it at whatever point they want. Because the stuff at the end is like, Jesus maybe didn't exist, and he definitely wasn't the Son of God. He doesn't have anything to do with God, except maybe like in this mystical, any more than any other, Buddha or Muhammad or any of the rest of those guys. And there's a chance that he doesn't even exist. So that's like at the very, very end of the book. So if you want to give up before then, if you want to be like, hey, this Jamin guy doesn't know what he's talking about, he's just a heretic, and keep your religion, then cool. I don't throw that on you at the beginning of the book, but it's kind of set up like, here's some problems with like church authority, right? And so here are the reasons that like throughout our history, throughout Christian history, we just keep changing what we say that God says, and we keep being sure. I mean, it's kind of like the science thing that I was talking about a second ago. We keep being sure that now we've pretty much got. I mean, we're maybe a little bit messed up. We might be a little bit surprised, but we pretty much got this God thing figured out. And when you go back in history, like, there's nowhere in history that you could take any modern, you take the number one, like most Christian pastor that you could find on the planet today, take him back 200 years and say, here you go, drop you on earth. Good luck. Go find a church that you can fit into that won't throw you out. He doesn't have anywhere to attend. They all throw him out because there's no one who's willing to accept that. I mean, blacks are the same as whites, or that women are the same as men, or that slavery is bad, or like there's nothing he can say in the Christian world that doesn't get him thrown out of a church. And that's true no matter, you take any Christian from any point in history and drop them on the planet at any other point in Christian history, and there's nowhere that they can attend church because everyone thinks that they're heretic. So that thing of like Christian authority, like, and these are the guys that like like the message is constantly, oh, no, we figured it out now. And then like a day later, they're like, no, wait, I'm sorry. Starting now we've got it right. Oh, wait, no, now. It's just so irritating. And they pretty much say that. Like if you go back and like read their writings, they frequently are like, oh, yeah, okay, but starting now, you have to if you don't go to church, if you're not fellowshipping with believers, then you're not really a part of the body of Christ, and you're not going to go to heaven. And then they're like, okay, that was bad. I mean, it's just constant. And so that's kind of like the first part is like, okay, so church authority, these guys, the chances that right now they're right, probably not. Right. And so that's kind of like the first thing is like church authority. You're going to have to figure out some of this stuff on your own. And then it goes through the other stuff of like, the inerrancy of the Bible. I think I go through heaven and hell first, because that's like people can give up heaven and hell. People like to give up hell. Hell's really inconvenient. So we go through hell and so trying to give up these things one at a time. And as soon as you feel like you can't take it anymore, then you can, call me and ask for a refund or whatever. Because I'm not wanting to wreck anyone's beliefs, but frankly, if I'm really honest, from what I've found, I'd love to be proven wrong. I don't think Jesus had anything to do with God. but I still think I'm a Christian.
It's funny because you said at the start that you've kind of have you been ostracized a little bit by the evangelicals?
Have I? Yep. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I shouldn't laugh like that. I laugh at the question, not at the situation. The situation is I haven't talked with my parents since April of 2020. So it's been, at this point, we're going on 4 years. And I think there's probably a good chance that we'll never talk again.
Oh my God.
And that's my brother and my parents. And then my former Christian friends from that place, it's been about as long since I've talked to them. So summer of 2020 sucked. And it was, super depressing and suicidal and junk like that. And that's all the part of that. Like that's not in the book, because that's all autobiographical, and I tried to split it up so that I'm not telling my personal story. This is just theological, like here's my problems with Christianity. But yes, to say I've been ostracized is accurate. That's fair.
I was just going to make a witty joke about that you've been Rob Belled because you're mentioning heaven and hell.
Yeah, right.
How he was like ostracized. But that's actually that's way worse than I imagined. I thought a few people in church would have just because your book isn't like. The problem is you're not writing God is not great. So you're not like the atheists aren't but you're also not writing I don't know, the 10 best ways to grow your prosperities. The evangelicals aren't so are you kind of hated by both sides in a little way? Not hated, but like you kind of have beef.
Well, again, like it's a kind of a nuanced position. And I have compassion. I think I've got some compassion for both sides. The church has done a lot of damage. That is not stated nearly as strongly as I would want to say it. The church almost is damage historically. So the people who say there's nothing to be salvaged here, and it's all been controlling and evil since it was born 2,000 years ago, like, you're not wrong. So anyone who's like, but Christianity, like, I still want to call myself a Christian. I understand their problem with that perspective. And so I've got some compassion for people who dislike my stance on Christianity from the atheist perspective. But then from the Christian perspective, I mean, I was there for 40 years. I understand the fear and the pity, the condescension for atheists, and for anyone who would dare. I mean, the things I've said in this interview already would disqualify me for heaven from my former perspective. So I understand, and the only reason they could imagine that I would do that is because I want to sin, and I've given up Christianity, so I'm free to drink alcohol that I can't drink, or whatever it is that I'm wanting to do, And so I've got some compassion for that too. I remember thinking that, and I know there's nothing I can do to convince you otherwise, and so that's where you live, is that's what you have to believe about me, and so those aren't the people that I hang out with.
Let me ask you then. What's your favorite sin? That's the how I opened last week's episode, because everyone leaves Christianity because they want to sin. But have you noticed? That was not what's your favorite sin, but have you noticed your, I guess, morality change at all? Like what things that are important to you, not important? Deconstructing, yeah. Well, what are those things?
Yeah, I think John Steinbeck said, "Now that you don't have to be perfect, now you can be good," or something like that. I'm so much. The story you told is a great microcosm of, I think, what happens for a lot of deconstructionists. In that, and again, I don't know. There's a whole deconstructionist history, and I'm not trying to associate with that. I don't mean it official. I just mean people who saw things that they couldn't unsee and learned things they couldn't unlearn, and things fell apart for them. That's what I mean by deconstructionist. The thing that you said about the elephants, as a Christian, you don't have those moments with nature really, because nature is just a expression of God. That's God expressing himself to you. So when you see the elephants, you can't see elephants. All you can see is if there is beauty there to be to behold. It is Jesus and God and your Trinity and the Christian story. Everything that is beautiful has to hold the Christian narrative. And so there's no appreciating, in my experience, and doesn't have to be true for everybody, there's no truly appreciating nature or anything beautiful, even your family, outside of like seeing it as an expression of Christianity. And so then you like see that, and at some point it hits you like, damn, these elephants, like this is me. They're doing the same thing I would do. They're feeling the same thing I would feel. You're feeling empathy for them, and you're realizing these guys are me. I'm connected to these guys. With just a slight change in the branch of evolution, like, I'm there. That could have been me, and all of a sudden I care about elephants in ways that I've never cared about elephants before. And I wonder, how come when I was in the religion that held all of the truth about all of morality, I didn't care about things nearly to the degree that I care about them now? Like, that's frustrating. I was supposed to be more loving there, and yet I find myself not compelled. Like then I was compelled because I wouldn't have said earn something, but the truth was, like, I wanted to be a good Christian. I wanted to shine my light so that other people would become Christian, and all the things. There were reasons that I wanted to be good, and now I'm just compelled to be good because I've got so much compassion and so much empathy for all of my fellow universe, really, my fellow beings, and so there's just so much more natural morality that I live in, and I'm like, I don't want that. Like, I wanted this with my Christianity, and when my Christianity fell apart, what I found underneath was morality, and I thought that was the only place morality was found. So yeah, like I think it's not an uncommon experience that former Christians become much more moral people because they've got new reasons to do it, and it sucks. Like, this is what I was aiming for. I wanted to be the perfect loving thing, and I had the God of love, but as it turns out, I didn't. I had Christianity, and that doesn't have much to do with the God of love, the way that it's done almost all the time.
Yeah, I can relate to that so much. I have so many moments where when in my deconstruction, I started caring about things that I would never have cared about. Like I felt like I became more moral. There were things that I guess I had become more immoral from a Christian perspective. Like, I guess I don't know, like I swore more, maybe. Like,
sure, that's
yeah,
fair.
but like, there's not many other things that. Oh no, having a channel where I drink alcohol is probably
right
as well. It's you talk a little bit about hell in your book, and I read parts of those chapters, and you have this quote. I'm going to quote you from your book, and this quote is amazing. So let me just read it. No civilization has been foolish enough to make a law that says criminals won't receive any punishment until they're 80, at which point all of their past crimes would be harshly punished in a batch trial. But even that inhumane system might serve as a deterrent to some who saw the punishment of an
octogenarian.
Yes.
Yeah.
And choose to minimize their future consequences. Christianity's system is infinitely worse, where the punishment of all humanity gets batched together after humanity is done. After we no longer have civilization, God cleans up civilization. After no more evil can take place, he deters evil. After we no longer need protection, he locks away all the bad guys. But it's not just that. It's not just too little too late. It's worse than that. If even one sin gets you cast out of God's presence forever, that would mean that the judge is handing out the same sentence to all offenders. But it's not just lazy justice. It's worse than that. If he is punishing a finite amount of evil with an infinite amount of suffering, that would be injustice. And I mean, that's profound. Like, that's really profound. I never considered the fact that the little girl who dies unrepentant of her of the hatred she feels towards her rapist would be punished at the same level as Hitler or someone just as evil.
Yeah.
Like, they're both sent to the same place with the same torment forever. That is crazy. The person with unforgiveness towards someone who's committed a harsh crime, and literally the worst person I can think of.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I feel like this is the history of the church, is people bring up stuff like that and the church goes, oh, wait, okay, wait, hang on. That can't be right. Okay, so purgatory, there we go. And this is how purgatory came about, as I understand it. It's like, okay, so purgatory, because God wouldn't send the little girl and Hitler to the same place for the same punishment. That's not just. So we're gonna do purgatory, and purgatory is where people like burn off the lighter sins, so that eternal damnation is just for the Hitlers. Like, okay, how did you come up with that? Like, you just made that up right now because you didn't like the conclusions of what you had said before, and there's no basis for any of it. It's just a system that someone asks a question, what about this thing? And then like, okay, so you got to like put a little stint in that to like prop that up. That's not a stint, whatever that is. And then like, okay, but this thing's falling over. And then we prop that up, and then we prop that up. And then the whole thing all together that's just propping up. That's Christendom. Like that's the theology, is like, oh, well, we have to believe this, because if we don't believe this, then this thing falls over. And so it has to be this way. God must have made it this way, even though the Bible doesn't say that. There's no revelation of this. It's something that obviously has to be, because if that's not true, then this thing falls down, and we're not willing to let that thing fall down. And so that's where like the title comes in. Like, if I'm really honest, like that seems made up. And I think that other thing would fall over, because you guys didn't think of purgatory until someone pointed out the little girl and Hitler, and then you made it up.
Yeah. Are there things that you consider like you won't let fall over?
I mean, this is the whole thing of like getting in trouble on both sides now. Like,
sorry,
that's fine, but I feel like a lot of atheist viewers feel like I'm propping up the whole thing. All the way back to Chesterton's fence. Like I was arguing to not let this thing fall down. And then the Christians ask, is there anything that you won't let fall down? I'm like, I don't know. Okay. So things I won't let fall down, like just my honesty. I think that's the only thing that I really have. If I'm really, really honest, then I'm going to make the atheists hate me, because I think the religious terminology describes the experience. Not, and when I say religious terminology, I don't mean Judeo-Christian terminology. I just mean the universal. You take the average of the religions out there. There's a lot in common, and those things seem to describe the experience of being human and connecting with something bigger than me, better than your other definitions that I agree are true. You're right about the art. It's just frequencies, and it's all stupid. But that doesn't describe the art that the feeling that I have when I play the piano. So you're right. You win. And also, I'm going to go play the piano and have fun and pretending that it's art. And so the answer is no. There's nothing that I won't let fall down. But there's nothing, if I'm honest, there's nothing that I need to hold up. Like it's a bit absurd. Yeah, I'm at a loss for words now to describe.
No, that I like what you said there, because I think I'm the same in that honesty is the only thing I guess I wouldn't like. I think you need to start with honesty. You need to be honest with like yourself. You need to be honest with others. You need to be honest in order to try and get to any truthful worldview. Be dishonest if you want. Like, you know, when you forget to scan some cheese at the self-checkout and say it's onions, and then they ask you, you know, go lie, tell them, oh, it's a mistake, whatever. But when you're investigating truth, when you're investigating truth, I think you need to be honest. Like, you need to be honest with yourself, honest with,
And the most uncomfortable part of that is that I don't know. Like, if I'm really honest, I don't know. If my daughter asks me, is love real? Like, baby, I don't know. And if she's like, well, you know, I'm going to explain to her what my current view is, if her attention span will allow it. But then, like, if she goes on from there and she's like, well, I think that you know, half of that is silly, and true love is real. I'm gonna go pursue true love. Like, I'm gonna be like, okay, like that's you're pursuing something that's real. Also, I think that's going to go badly for you, but that's your choice. And if she goes the opposite direction, is like, oh, well, then love obviously isn't real. This whole thing was pointless. I don't believe in love anymore. Like, yeah, I think that's right too, and I think that's going to go badly for you. So, but that's up to you. Like, you can live either way. And for me, holding both of them gives me a more fulfilling life. And so I don't know if it's true or not, but it works, kind of, as well as
if
anything.
you could give yourself advice at the start of this whole journey, what advice would you give yourself?
None. That's got to be the right answer. I feel like my personality was destined for this. If I had not grown up in the environment that I grew up in, if I had not been on the path that I was on, then I would have gotten to this point a lot earlier. And I'm a bit jealous of people who, because I spent 39 years pretty deeply in this stuff. And so now I'm halfway done with this experience. Perhaps if I'm lucky, I get another 40. Probably I'm more than 50% of the way through this. And then I'm just now like, oh, okay, I don't have to do this big long list of things that I thought I had to do. So I'm jealous of the people who like figure it out earlier, but I think I was just going to keep asking, but isn't this weird? I was going to keep coming back to that and keep asking for answers. And eventually something like I was going to start to get answers, and I was going to come to these conclusions. So I don't think there's anything, if I can go back, invest in Apple or something. But as far as religion is concerned, no, I don't think there's another way through it. And I honestly don't wish this on anyone. I don't know that, yikes. I don't know if this next statement is true, but it came up. I'm going to go with it for now. There's a chance that my life would have turned out more comfortably, let's say, if I had not left the religion and if I had just stayed in it and never pursued the answers to these questions. That might have been, in some respects, a better life. It's not a life that I would want to live now, in the same way that, like, if you believe in the tooth fairy forever, you never have to go through the pain of like losing the tooth fairy. And that's cool. But then, like, no one who knows that the tooth fairy isn't real would want to go back into that. And that's, I guess, like the Matrix thing of like, do you want to get plugged back into the Matrix or something like that? So I think there's a way in which I could agree that my life would have been better if I hadn't left Christianity. And also, I would completely agree that this was way better than Christianity. There's a lot of unfortunate loss in there. So I don't know. I don't really wish this on anybody. I wouldn't wish this on a younger version of myself. I don't know that I would have been able to handle it. I don't know that I am handling it now. So I don't know. I am where I am, and so I'll take it from here.
There's that Henry David Thoreau quote: "Rather than love, than money, than fame, give me truth."
Yeah.
And it's kind of paraphrased in the movie Into the Wild, which is where I first heard it. Mm-hmm. And he kind of like adds extra things like, rather than convenience, rather than happiness, rather than joy, rather than contentment, give me truth. Yeah. And that was like kind of the subliminal underpinnings of my deconstruction is I was willing to pay the price of having a life that was harder but knowing the truth, because there's a great deal of, I agree with you, there's a great deal of convenience being part of a community and thinking you have the truth, rather than going out and investigating and finding that we don't have answers to a lot of the big questions. Where did life start? Or how did life start? Sorry. Why did the universe start at all, with the Big Bang, everything. So yeah, it's a very uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah, and there's a lot of those quotes that are like really cavalier, and I feel like those are the kinds of quotes where everyone would agree with them, but then living them again, like that experience, like, don't be so cavalier. Like, truth might not be the great thing that you think it is. It's not going to comfort you. It's not gonna hold you and take care of the things that you care about. It's going to do is be truth. And so I think most people, like, it feels very Braveheart-ish to be like, yeah, no matter what happens, like I just care about the truth. Like, maybe not.
Yeah.
Don't go down that path too eagerly.
So has your family life changed at all? Like, did you guys go to church all the time and now you don't go to church, or do you still go to church? Like, how is your relationship like with your partner? Like, you don't have to get into like the exact details of everything, but like, how has that fared through this whole process?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, our life is different. In that I used to give everything to the church, and ours was a particularly controlling church that is known, I think, by everyone who used to attend it as a cult. And because I'm just the a-hole that I am, I named my blog about that church Almost a Cult, because like, once again, like, just be careful about your, like, you write things off with these labels, and it's not going to serve you as well as you think. So anyway, I hold it as almost a cult. But yeah, so we like gave everything to that place, and in the end it was more damaging than it was good, probably by a long shot. And so yeah, now we don't currently go to church. There's a church that I really like, I particularly like their music, that I could attend if I was free on a Sunday. But like, as soon as the preacher starts preaching, like, and then he gets into talking about, things that he's sure of, that he's trying to convince his audience of, that I just can't get myself there. Again, not to be disrespectful, probably there aren't any Christians watching at this point, but like if I had,
there are a few Christians make it.
Okay, well, good for them. I then they probably won't be offended by this, but like, it'd be, similar to like if I went to a really good concert and then they got up and like gave an altar call for Santa, like,
yeah. Or imagine you go to like a Metallica concert and then
yeah,
like James does like a 45-minute like talk about, like, I don't know, it could be anything, environmental science, and you're like,
yep,
oh man, can you just play Master of Puppets, please? Like,
right. Yeah, and that's the way most people feel when they go on those rants. So that's kind of how I feel at church. Like, everyone's gathering to feel great about this speech that I don't feel great about, and so I don't really go. And then my wife, she's got her own journey. We're very different emotional beasts. So she seems to have made her peace less spectacularly than I have. She seems to have come to a pretty content place, and this is my interpretation of her experience, so this isn't her experience, but she seems pretty content to, like, oh yeah, those were really important experiences in my life, and they were based on something that isn't real, but the experiences were real, and so I'll value those experiences. They served me in the moment, and now I don't need them anymore. And once again, I'm jealous. Like, I can't.
It's so annoying, because that's like my wife as well. It's like it was just very much like, God's not real. Okay, like, do you want a cheese board? And she's like cutting up like things.
Yes,
like it was just like for me, it was like, it's all consuming. I started a podcast talking about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what do you mean? This is like, and then Amy's just kind of I guess, like, not to like undermine it, because it would have been a big process for Amy and everything as well, but it's like, I guess the way that it's like Amy has definitely just been able to like leave it and not like think too much about it, or just get on with her day. It's actually admirable. It's annoying, but it's admirable.
That sounds very familiar. Yeah.
So your last chapter, if I'm remembering correctly, is Living Honestly.
Mm-hmm. That's the last chunk of the book, which is
chunk of the book.
Yeah, it's kind of a summary of another book, because there's kind of 3 books in one. The beginning part is Dear Evangelicals, which is going to be its own book that doesn't get into like, it's very like, you could read it as a Christian and end up a Christian. So there's no like danger to it. It's just like, here's some nice things to think about deconstructionists. Here's some ways to keep them in your church and keep them tithing instead of hating them and accusing them and all that stuff. So then there's this main book is like, if I'm really honest, here's some stuff that I can't believe anymore. And then the last part of the book is a summary of a book that's going to be Finding God Despite Religion, which is more about like, now that I'm not in that and I can't believe that, here's my current journey to move on. And I think that's the part that you're talking about, is Living Honestly. It's just like, Yeah, it's so now what do we do now that we're not doing that anymore?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask you is what do you do?
Yeah, stuff like this. Write a 450-page book and I like live compassionately. I mean, if there is, for me at least, where I currently stand, that's what was really missing in my religious experience. That's where I was being merely religious and not sacred, is the lack of compassion that I think Christianity inherently has. Doesn't necessarily have to have, but inherently has, for non-believers. And so the things you were describing about the elephants, like that, there's so many of those. For me, the sunrises and sunsets, and this just sounds stupid to me coming out of my mouth, but like I commune with the sunrises and sunsets so deeply now. Like when I see a sunset, like regardless of what happened today, you did your best. Maybe you didn't do your best. Maybe you spent the day just bitter and hardening your heart, as the Christians would say, becoming a worse person today. But whatever, like the day's done. Like we're all gonna take a nap and you're gonna wake up tomorrow and you get to try again. And it doesn't matter what you did today because the sun doesn't remember and the world doesn't remember. You're just gonna get up and you're just gonna do something new. So you're forgiven, or good job, or whatever you need at the end of the day. But take a nap and get up tomorrow and be a better Jamin than you were today, if you can, or be a worse Jamin, whatever. So like the sunset is like, this is, I there's so many Christian principles that are in there about confessing your sins and about forgiveness and about trying again and restoration and atonement, and like there's just so much stuff that's wrapped up in like that experience of the sunset for me. Like, okay, yeah, thanks. It doesn't matter if I screwed up today. That doesn't have any bearing on my potential for goodness tomorrow. And then the sun rises, and the moon. They all have their equally stupid experiences. For me, they're just beautifully sacred. I've got a hummingbird feeder on my front porch that has brought me more divinity than all of my Christian experiences combined. And I don't say that lightly or flippantly. I like literally. It's the same thing as like your elephants thing. Like just like that's me. That's me. Like like that dude is struggling and he's looking for something. He's trying not to die constantly, and he's just gorgeous, and he doesn't even know it. And he's flying around, and he's trying to, and I can help him out a little bit. Like I can give him something to drink, and also appreciate his beauty. Like that's me. Thanks for showing me a part of me that I wasn't thinking of. You're beautiful. Good luck out there.
Were you the kind of Christian who would take a photo of a sunset or have a photo of a sunset and put like a little psalm in the bottom and then stick it on your MySpace page?
No, all that mattered was like I wasn't into any of that stuff because like all that really matters is Jesus. So
were you even a true Christian then if you weren't posting psalms photos with sunsets?
If it has a verse, that'll redeem almost anything. Sure, but better if it has a cross in the background or a crown of thorns than a sunset without a cross. Like that's a wasted opportunity. So.
Yeah, well, I actually think I used to think about this because I've always been a questioning person, and I used to always bother me the photo of a sunset and God's glory, or God creates this creation or whatever psalm they stick in the bottom right hand corner, because I was like, wait, so technically you could do the same thing with like a big spider. Like you could have a photo of like a big spider and go God's creation, and so many people would have a vitriol. People might even be upset that you would do something like that you would post a psalm, but that's equally God's creation, right? According to the Christian worldview. So
right,
it just seemed to be like picking and choosing. But I think what people are experiencing there is they're experiencing awe and wonder, and then they kind of redirect it. Well, not redirect it, but they attribute it to God, and then that's what makes them they feel good. And so then when you come to a Christian and you say, I remember asking a Christian once, what would it look like if you didn't believe in God? And they couldn't even fathom that. Like, how could I even? They even said, how could I even answer such a question? Like they couldn't even comprehend that because everything was attributed to God. their health, their the beauty of the night sky, everything was attributed to God. So yeah, it's like such a pinnacle thing that would shatter their worldview. And I guess also I think that's a big part of why I think we see so much dishonesty in apologetics, is because people are brought up in these worldviews, and they think that they would be earth-shattering to remove this part of their worldview, and so then they have to engage in motivated reasoning to make things work. And that's why you see people like Ken Ham or Kent Hovind talk about what they talk about, and you're like, you're making more atheists than you're saving Christians. Like
well, and Ken Ham has an Australian accent, which adds several IQ points to everybody. So
so wait, do Australian accents, is that like, do we sound dumb to you guys, or do we sound smart to you guys, or like what
you sound way tougher to me? I don't know, but maybe that sounds like a Crocodile Dundee thing. I don't know.
Maybe,
but,
maybe.
more intellectual, but I think almost any accent does that.
More intellectual.
I think so. I don't know. It's maybe. Like it's almost British. I can't do an Australian accent because I always end up just British. So they're like, I think subconsciously that they're very similar. I don't know.
Yeah, right. So a question that I've got a little bit of a story, and then I'll ask one last question. But part of my deconstruction lines so much up with something that you said. So when I went on our world trip, I was like wanting to go into a world trip, like sorry, when I say world trip, I just assume you knew what I was talking about. My wife and I decided to go to Japan, and then Europe, and then Thailand.
Cool.
And then back home. And we'd never been overseas before, except for I've been to Vanuatu for some mission trips, and we'd both been to New Zealand for our honeymoon. So we had never been to like drastically different cultures or anything like that. And I made the decision that I wanted to go into it with an open mind. I wanted to kind of embrace everything about it. I wanted to become worldly, not in like a bad Christian, like worldly in Christian way, but like I wanted to be like, I wanted to know things. And we got to Asakusa in Japan, in Tokyo, and we went up to a shrine, and I felt very conflicted, but I still went along with it to wash our hands before we go in, because that's like what you do out of respect.
Right.
And one of the shrines, they were blowing smoke on their face, like they had like incense, like there was like lots of incense everywhere, and guests would come up and they'd blow smoke in their face, and then they would walk off into the temple, and it was part of it was like part of a purification thing. And I thought to myself, are they really being cleansed? Like, is something actually happening in the spirit realm? Remember, I was a Christian at the time. I was like,
right.
And I was like, and even if it wasn't, like if something wasn't happening and you could prove it wasn't happening, would that matter? Like, I don't think it would. And I like literally was like, I don't think it would matter at all. I think like if you could like scientifically prove you had like a solo meter, and the solo meter could prove that the soul was not being cleansed by the smoke, I don't think it would change. I think the tradition would still continue. It wouldn't matter to a lot of people. And then I was like, well, that's interesting. And this is just a thought that I had. And then I thought, I wonder how many of my beliefs are like that. That, things that are happening, And when you said, so this is a question you have at the start of the book, if I could prove to you that Jesus wasn't God, would you want to know? And that's first of all, how many people have you asked that question who have actually been able to answer?
I mean, it's similar to saying, like, if I could prove that gravity wasn't real, would you want to know? Like, everyone's gonna be like, yeah, bring it on. Like, sure, go ahead, take your best shot, because no one thinks that it's really possible. So it's hard to word Christians enough about what information is out there, because they don't think that it exists. So I like it never lands. But I for my own conscience, I feel like I have to be honest about this stuff. Like, you get into this stuff and I can't help you out. I don't have a way back to Christianity. If I did, I'd be a Christian. I don't have a way back. So
no, I know you peek under that rug, and then you can't not. You just have to pretend that rug isn't, like those cracks aren't there, and that would just be lying. Okay, well, this is a question I like to ask people at the end of the conversation sometimes, and I think it'd be really good for you, because I'm going to ask you to answer this question, but I'm going to ask you not to put it into your. I'm going to ask you to be more rigid. I don't want you to be like yes and no and like and
All right,
true.
fine.
Okay. Just for fun. Just for fun. Okay. Just for fun.
Okay.
So what is the most plausibly true religion that you don't believe in?
The most plausibly true religion that I don't believe in?
Mm-hmm.
Plausible sounds so rational. So what I want to say is none of them. I don't think any of them are even close to right. I mean, there's something about pantheism that's like, it's so nondescript that it could almost satisfy something. But I don't know. Like that's like asking like which of the love experts really understands love? Like none of them. It's not a real thing.
like if I reword it and say that there's a magic genie that pops out of a bottle, and you got to ignore the fact that it's a magic genie. And
sure, I'm good.
I
believe in crazier things.
Yeah, and well, actually, let's say that ChatGPT just knows everything about everything, and we ask it, is there a true religion? And it says yes. I'm not going to tell you which one, but one of the religions in the world is 100% accurate, and you have to choose which one it is. Which one do you think that possibly is?
Yeah, I'm going to go something like pantheism or something that has like consciousness in everything.
Yeah.
Is that does that?
That's kind of. I'll give you that. But if you had to choose
a monotheistic religion,
if you had to, no, you can choose like that. But like if you're going to be like pagan or polytheist, you'd say like Norse pagan. Like you'd be more specific in regards to like Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Mormonism.
And we're talking about it being true, not just being practical. Because Jainism is wonderful for peace. But I'm going to go with Buddhism for truth.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's what everyone gives. Everyone says Buddhism.
There's a reason it's stuck around for so long. It's hard. It's hard to refute it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's Hinduism as well, but a lot of people. I feel like Buddhism is more accepted in the West than Hinduism.
I don't really know the difference, honestly. So,
you should read. I think you would. You know what? You might read the Bhagavad Gita. It's a Hindu text.
Yeah,
and people say like there are scientists or psychologists who say that it's actually symbolic for like the mind and everything. It's a small book. You can read it. But it's about like Arjuna and Krishna standing before a battle and like and everything. But it's the let me just read. Let me just.
So in my mind too, while you're looking that up, like Hinduism has a lot more defined gods than Buddhism, and so in my mind, and this is probably just my own ignorance. Hopefully, I'll be smarter in a second than I was a second ago. But in my mind, like Buddhism, it does not like put as much description on God, and then Hinduism's like, here's your however many gods that there are, and
I don't even know if there is a god in Buddhism. For different sects. So I remember reading. I've told this story 100 times, but I listened to this in Bali when I was like drunk poolside, and I felt like I had a spiritual experience. But
well, then you did. That's the same sentence.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so this is just part of chapter 9. Okay, so Krishna is talking to Arjuna, and this just sounds so biblical to me. Anyway, so he's talking. So if I remember correctly, Krishna has revealed himself to Arjuna, and he's explaining who he is. And he says, "I am the ritual and the sacrifice. I am the true medicine and the mantram. I am the offering and the fire which consumes it, and the one to whom it is offered. I am the father and mother of this universe, and its grandfather too. I am its entire support. I am the sum of all knowledge, the purifier, the syllable Om. I am the sacred scriptures, the Rig, Yajur, and Sama Vedas. I am the goal of life, the Lord and support of all, the inner witness, the abode of all. I am the only refuge, the one true friend. I am the beginning, the staying, and the end of creation. I am the womb and the eternal seed. I am heat, I give and withhold the rain. I am immortality and I am death. I am what is and what is not. And it continues on, but
yeah,
but you read that and you're like, I actually feel very spiritual because I'm like about it, because I'm like, this was written 400 BC, I think it was.
right.
Like, this is old stuff and from a very different part of the world than Judaism. And it's just I find it beautiful, I find it profound.
I think I would want to take all of the I's out and turn it into you or we. But if we can do that, I've got the same sacred experience there, is what you're describing.
Yeah,
like because the eyes, I think is what is messed us up. Which in that case, like this is where like my biblical training comes back in, and like that the thing where like Moses is like, hey, describe yourself a little bit, and God's like, I am. That's all you're gonna get. Like the more you try to describe me, the less you're gonna understand me. That seems like a true statement. And so from that perspective, I'm on board for that part of Exodus. But
I think like the way I describe it is I find it amazing and beautiful and everything, but I just don't think it's true. I don't think there is Krishna telling Arjuna, I don't think that actually happened, but it's beautiful and amazing and it's a great story. Like, that's how
and there's a possibility that it represents a truth that you couldn't represent. This is back into your Jordan Peterson territory. I don't believe this is necessarily true, but it seems entirely possible. Again, given my disrespect for our current level of knowledge, that I think that we're currently really close to 0% of knowable things. There's a possibility that the only way to convey the truth there is to make up a story and then let that be our heuristic for those things. In the same way that it wasn't that long ago, I think, that like people believed in evil spirits. And like, if you were sick, I wouldn't come visit you because I didn't want to get your evil spirit, because we didn't have germ theory and we didn't understand how that stuff worked. And so if you don't have germ theory, then you can be smart and know that spirits aren't a real thing and go visit your friend anyway and end up dead. Or two, you can believe in something that doesn't exist, that is a better heuristic for something that is truer than what you currently have. And so in that sense, I would encourage everyone of the time to believe in evil spirits because it's truer than the actual true thing. The people who are saying there's no spirits, they're right. But also you've got something that's truer than that. And so then you get back into the debates about like what is truth and stuff like that. But that's just where I've got a lot of respect for narratives. I think their narratives are more important to our species than some atheists give us credit for. But I don't know. I'm a piano teacher. I'm not a specialist at this stuff. I don't know anything. I'm just trying to get through life is best for me. So,
well, we have a couple of super chats, but first, one of the first comment on this stream that I could see was, "Ooh, podcast #108. That's a big number in Buddhism." So isn't that interesting? There is a God.
Cool.
Well, there is Buddha. Vitamina, of course, asked me to change my name to Davy Dave, just so everyone's wondering why it's called Davy Dave for the $10 super chat. I Killed Earl, $20 super chat. Thank you so much for being a fabulous human with the sincerest apologies. Have a drink on me. Cheers. So I think she would think you're an amazing human as well, but I think that's in reference to there was a show that she scheduled me on and then they're rescheduling and she's super chatting to say thanks for that. But what I will say is I Killed Earl is starting a new channel and with some friends, and when I have it, I'm on that channel, so that's going to be awesome to check out. And Hang for She, this is a question I was going to ask, actually. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Top 5 songs about religion, and where do you place Had a Day and 3 Days by Jane's Addiction?
I'm sorry, that's a question for me?
Yeah.
I don't know those songs.
Oh, okay. Well, let me ask.
Well, I would want to point out that I was raised extremely fundamentalist evangelical. I didn't know any secular music at all until I was embarrassingly old. So anything that you're like, oh, that's from his generation, it is, but I don't know any of it unless it's DC Talk or Sonic Flood or any of the other embarrassing Christian titles from the 90s.
Yeah. Okay. So give us your top 5 worship bands of all time.
back then, right?
Yeah.
Worship
You can go
band.
now if you want.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, they weren't worship, but DC Talk played a huge role. And then there was Delirious, man. Hillsongs, of course. Everyone's yeah. Shout to the Lord and Shine Jesus Shine from Darlene Sheck. See, these are the names I know, unfortunately. Oh yeah, well yeah, there's some
Bethel.
Yeah, that was a little bit later on. I was starting to be a little more rebellious by the time they got popular. And I some of the leaders there are friends of friends, and I don't have any more to say about that.
I've got such a hate for Bethel. Not necessarily. Well, no, not really. That's pretty mean. What I mean is, there was this group that used to, in our church, they used to like mock every other church besides Bethel, and Bethel was like the king church. Like, oh, Bethel, I need Bethel, and it was like so frustrating.
Yeah.
What about Third Day?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I still like to. Yeah, the lead singer always sounded like Hootie from Hootie and the Blowfish to me. So my impressions of those two guys are the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, Third Days. I like Third Day.
Hootie and the Blowfish. There's a CD I bought and rebought and rebought and rebought in the 90s, because every time we had a revival, I would come to Christ again and then throw it away, and then a couple months later, it's like, but I really like Hootie and the Blowfish. So yeah, they got a lot of my money.
Yeah, that's so funny. I still remember when I downloaded the Offspring album again. Like I threw it out at one stage, and then after I was a youth pastor, I downloaded I think it was Americana. I downloaded that again, and I was like, that was my first tape. I had my first recorded tape from a friend, and I downloaded it on iTunes, and I was like, it was at a Bible study, and I was like, just as we're leaving, I was like, I remember Offspring, and I downloaded it, and I felt so like, oh, is this okay?
Yeah.
It's not okay. Like, yeah,
right. Am I gonna fall into sin, man? Yeah.
Oh, Planet Shakers.
Planet Shaker. Oh, yeah. I feel like that might have been slightly after my time.
Yeah. Do you know Tribe?
No, I don't. Well, okay. So if you've heard of Carmen, that's more like my era, like late 80s, early 90s. Carmen. I owned everything of Carmen's. Yeah.
Did you know? I'm not sure if you've ever seen the episodes with Kip Davis on here, but he has he really likes this Christian band called Trouble, and they were a Christian metal band from the 80s, but they were like swear, and then
not real Christians.
Yeah. And they have this song called "The Bastards Will Pay," and that's like his theme song. So every time he comes on, I have to change the song to "The Bastards Will Pay," and it's a really good song. It's really like 80s metal. It's cool. Well, thank you so much, Jamin, for coming on. I really appreciate it. Everyone, go check out Jamin's book. If I'm really honest, it links in the description. If I'm really honest, go check out the book. If I'm really honest, links in the description. Of course, check it out. I thought it was only available for Kindle, but now it looks like it's available for paperback as well, which is really cool.
The paperback version is just recently available. And for the person who did the super chat that said my cover sucks, they said it nicer than that. I agree with you. Hit me up. I take you up on your offer. So anyway, shout out to the chat.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to see all you guys next week. Actually, next week there won't be a Deep Drinks episode. We'll be doing Diablo Critics, and it'll be streaming here along with every other channel. So look forward to that with Dr. Jennifer Bird, Dr. Josh Bowen, Dr. Kip Davis, Dr. Dan McClellan, and Dr. Matt Monga. I think that's all of them. And we'll be looking at the Satan documentary. Going to be really good. So see you guys later. Bye.